In 2008, the average middle-class family lost 40% of their entire net worth. Trillions of dollars vanished in a matter of months. People lost their homes. They lost their retirement funds. But during that exact same economic collapse, a specific group of old money families did not panic. In fact, their wealth quietly multiplied. They bought the bottom of the market and increased their net worth by hundreds of millions. You were taught that investing is risky. You were told to blindly hand your money to a financial advisor and hope for the best. That belief is why you're financially fragile. The modern financial system pushes you into a trap. They tell you to lock everything you own into a mortgage and a retirement account you cannot touch for 30 years. That is a recipe for financial slaughter. Wealthy families do not operate this way. They do not rely on luck. They rely on an ancient, mathematical framework for capital allocation that predates modern banking by thousands of years. It is called the rule of thirds. In the next few minutes, you're going to see the exact structural blueprint that historically wealthy Jewish families and ancient kings used to preserve capital through wars, hyperinflation, and economic depressions. We will break down the precise 33-33-33 allocation model. You will understand why hoarding cash destroys your purchasing power, why your house is not a wealth engine, and how to turn liquid capital into offensive ammunition. Write this down now. Wealth is not about accumulation. It is about dynamic circulation. By the end of this protocol, you will stop operating like a frantic consumer and start structuring your capital like a generational institution. Let us dismantle the illusion. You must first understand why your current strategy is failing. The middle class operates on a binary system of extreme risk or extreme fear. When they feel confident, they overcommit. They put 90% of their net worth into a single piece of real estate, or they sink all their cash into a fragile new business. When they feel fear, they retreat. They hoard cash under the mattress while inflation quietly rots it away. Both approaches are completely incorrect. Modern portfolio theory pushes the 60-40 split. 60% stocks, 40% bonds. But this system lacks a critical survival mechanism: absolute liquidity. When an economic shock hits, real estate becomes illiquid. You cannot sell a house in 3 days to feed your family. Stocks crash, forcing you to sell at a massive loss just to survive. You are forced into liquidation. Forced liquidation is how generational wealth is destroyed. If you have no flexible capital when the storm hits, the system will extract your assets at a fraction of their value. The elite know this. That is why they engineered a margin of safety that makes them bulletproof. The ancient framework divides wealth into 3 absolute pillars. The first 33% is allocated to land, real estate, hard, physical assets. You must fundamentally change how you view real estate. A house is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is an anchor. Historically, fiat currencies always collapse. Governments print money until the paper becomes worthless. Land cannot be printed. It is finite. Allocating 1/3 of your wealth to physical property ensures that no matter what happens to the banking system, your capital is anchored in reality. It provides a defensive shield against hyperinflation. But here's the trap where high-income earners fail. They buy a massive luxury mansion that consumes 60 or 70% of their net worth. They become house poor. They are rich on paper, but completely broke in reality. If you over-allocate into land, you lose your agility. You become a sitting duck. The rule is strict: 33%. It is a foundation, not the entire building. The second pillar is business. This is your equity in cash-flowing operations. If land is your defensive anchor, business is your offensive engine. Land protects your wealth from disappearing, but business is what actively multiplies it. You cannot save your way to generational wealth. A salary is a linear equation. You trade 1 hour of your life for a fixed amount of dollars. Business operates on an exponential curve. It is the active vehicle that captures market demand and turns it into cash flow. Whether it is a company you operate, equity in private businesses, or high-yield dividend stocks, this 33% must be actively working. But again, observe the failure of the average entrepreneur. They put 100% of their money, time, and sanity into their startup. If the market shifts, or a competitor destroys their margins, they lose everything. They have no anchor. By capping business allocation at 1/3, the ancient framework ensures that a total business failure does not equal a total family collapse. You isolate the risk while keeping the upside. This brings us to the final and most misunderstood 33%. Liquid capital, cash, gold, assets that can be converted to spending power in less than 24 hours. Most financial advisors will tell you that holding 33% of your net worth in cash is insane. They say inflation will eat it. They call it dead money. They are fundamentally wrong because they do not understand power dynamics. Liquidity is not an emergency fund. Liquidity is financial ammunition. Solomon's wealth was not static. It was dynamic. It was constantly circulating. When you hold 1/3 of your capital in liquid reserves, you achieve two things. First, you buy psychological dominance. When a recession hits and everyone else is panicking, your heart rate does not spike. You sleep perfectly. Second, you are positioned to seize opportunity. When the market crashes, assets go on sale. Businesses go bankrupt. Real estate drops by 40%. The people who over-allocated into their houses and businesses are forced to sell their assets to survive. And who buys those assets at massive discount? The individual who maintained 33% in liquid capital. You use your liquidity to buy their anchor and their engine for pennies on the dollar. That is how money quietly reproduces itself. But the elite do not stop at individual discipline. They scale this system through community liquidity. Historically, marginalized communities, specifically Jewish families, faced extreme persecution. They could not rely on banks. They could not rely on the state. They had to rely on each other. They formed collective liquidity pools. This means that families within a trusted network pooled their liquid capital to act as an internal bank. If a family member needed to seize a massive business opportunity or survive a sudden crisis, they did not go to a commercial bank and accept predatory interest rates. They borrowed from the community pool. This collective covenant amplifies wealth protection. It keeps the interest payments inside the network. It creates a closed-loop system where wealth circulates internally instead of bleeding out to external institutions. It builds an impenetrable fortress of resilience that survives generation after generation. None of this structural allocation matters if the mind operating it is weak. The final secret of the ancient wealth system is the concept of stewardship. The middle class views money as something to own and spend. The elite view money as something they are temporarily managing. You do not own the wealth. You are simply the steward of it for the next generation. This shifts your psychology. You stop buying depreciating liabilities to impress strangers. You start managing the capital to ensure it multiplies. And the ultimate liquid asset to ensure this survival is education. Before a family passes down the land, the business, or the liquidity, they pass down the financial education. Investing heavily in specialized knowledge, high-income skills, and financial literacy is an asset that cannot be taxed, confiscated, or stolen. It enhances your earning power immediately and guarantees that when the wealth is handed over, it is not destroyed by an incompetent heir. The modern financial industry wants you confused, over-leveraged, and fully invested in their products so they can collect management fees. They want you living paycheck to paycheck, terrified of a market crash. You must step out of the trap. Inventory your assets today. Look at your net worth. Are you sitting on 80% real estate with zero cash? You are fragile. Are you fully invested in a volatile business with no anchor? You are exposed. Rebalance your life. Build the anchor of land. Feed the engine of business. And hoard the ammunition of liquidity. Stop playing the consumer game and start building an empire. If you want to understand the exact psychological frameworks that keep the elite rich and the masses poor, subscribe to the channel. Study the structure. Master the game. See you in the next protocol.